Good morning, Big Square. Rotoroo.com with your morning horn of tea. Tea. Let's dig in. We're in December. We're in a hot month, so we're gonna dig in all month. Lots of posts, lots of analysis, lots of catch up. First, let's catch up on Deutsche Bank. They are under attack again by the U.S. government. One of the world's largest derivative holders is under attack again at the worst time possible. Do you think they're trying to take down the system or what? It's obvious. Exclusive from Reuters. Exclusive. U.S. digs deeper into Deutsche role in Danske money laundering scandal, sources say. The U.S. Department of Justice has in recent weeks stepped up its investigation into Deutsche Bank's role in the 200 billion euro or $220 billion Danske Bank money laundering scandal. Four people told Reuters. What does that mean? If one person tells them, if three, four, it must be more, more real. Probably they just don't want anybody honing in on who's leaking the information. One source said that DOJ's new line of inquiry is whether Deutsche Bank helped move tainted money from Danske, Denmark's largest lender, into the United States. If proven, that could lead to steep financial penalties. Here's the deal. They know exactly what was going on. They run the SWIFT system. You can't transfer that kind of money without going through the SWIFT system. They know every transaction, who, why, and where. Go to your bank and try to pull out over $10,000 and see if they let you without crawling up your booty and knowing everything about that transaction. They knew everything about the transaction. The SWIFT system, the Federal Reserve Bank, the U.S. Treasury. They all knew. The ECB, everybody knew. So I find it interesting now that they're coming after them for something they've known since the very first transfer was made. It's just, the stupidity of saying this was a surprise is ridiculous. You can't transfer that kind of money without the SWIFT, the people who control the SWIFT system, basically the U.S. Treasury, knowing everything about it, and the Federal Reserve System. Officials from the DOJ, who have been working closely with Estonian prosecutors for around a year, have also begun cooperating with Frankfurt state prosecutors, the source said. The Frankfurt prosecutors have been exploring Deutsche's role in processing payments for the Danish bank. The DOJ's focus on Germany's largest bank and its work with Frankfurt prosecutors have not been previously reported. It is such a joke. And of course, Deutsche Bank has been saying the same thing for 20 years. Quote, "We have repeatedly stressed that we are in good and constructive exchange with the authorities." They've been investigating Deutsche Bank for so long, but it's Germany's biggest bank. It's a too big to fail bank. It's like if Deutsche Bank or JP Morgan went down for their rigging of the silver market. At some point, they're all going down. And then there'll be people to blame. Then there'll be perp walks. But right now, what do? As the banks fail, which they are right now, they bail them out with overnight repos. Overnight bailouts. Now, not all of them are overnight. They've started doing POMOs, the permanent repos, which I'll get to in a second. But here's the latest. This is the second tranche of a new repo. Like I said, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, especially as we get near the end of the year, where they have to rig and jimmy their books by the end of the year. Everything on their books has to be in line with all the rules and regulations. You can do anything you want between quarter reporting, but at the end of the year, everything's got to be in line with all the bank regulators, and that's what's the problem. They aren't in line, especially JP Morgan. So what happens? The Fed changes the rules as to how they report the interest rates. Remember, the interest rates jump in the repo market jumped to 10% overnight. Remember that? What did they do to fix the problem? They didn't find the underlying problem. They changed the way the problem is reported. Now, if it jumps to 10%, they use an average, and they're only going to record like 1% or 2% higher. It is ridiculous. It is a fraud. The whole thing is a fraud. As a matter of fact, the Federal Reserve proposes a new rule to let inflation run hot. So basically, they can't fix the problem. They have to invent new ways to disguise the problem. As the Federal Reserve remains unable to stoke inflation because it refuses to measure it correctly and refuses to factor in asset inflation, here's a great chart on Zero Hedge about asset inflation. Look at the asset prices. That is the inflation, but none of that is calculated in the inflation rate. The real economy prices is what we have to live off, whereas the asset prices, all the investors and banksters get that stuff. So you want to know where the inflation's going? It's going into the S&P, the European HY, the US HY, MSCI World, all the stocks and bonds, and a little bit in gold. Of course, you're not allowed to talk about silver, by the way. That's the latest thing. They can't even talk about silver. Right now, they're mining silver, and I'm going to get into this later on today. I'm going to post something on silver and cryptos because it's been a while, but silver is being mined at 8-to-1. For every 1 ounce of gold, 8 ounces of silver is being mined. That is what's being mined out of the ground, 8-to-1. In-ground reserves are very similar. The only thing that is not 8-to-1 or in that range is the price, because it's rigged on the COMEX, as is evidenced by all the JP Morgan traders going under. But they don't mention JP Morgan by name. It is the biggest scandal in financial history. 150 years. I believe the silver breakout, as in silver becomes almost freely traded, will happen before the crypto breakout. Why? Because silver's not a monetary metal anymore. It's not. And we're running out of silver. It's one of the shortest term lifespan of all the elements according to the USGS model. I think it's like 15 years. Now, it keeps staying at 15 years because they keep finding more silver, and as the silver price goes up, more reserves are calculated. But they're not allowing the silver price to go up. At $1,000 silver, it probably won't be 15 years. It could be 150 years. But it's not being allowed, so all this silver is being consumed and thrown into electronics and these new smart cars and Tesla mobiles, and you name it, silver's being used because it's so undervalued. If you have any gold, you are insane. Swap it for silver right now. Gold, no. Silver, yes. Hell of a lot more gold out there. Even if it gets to the normal ratio of 8-to-1. You're going to, 80-to-1 right now? You're going to make 10 times the amount of money you would if you held gold. If you hold gold, you're giving up 10 times the amount of money by holding silver. Obviously, when we hit the gold bull runs, silver performs much better than gold. And vice versa on the downswing. It's all rigged. Yes, I understand that. But to not have silver and be overloaded in gold or have any gold at all, insanity at its finest. Anyway, back to the new Fed plan. It has now considered launching a new rule that would let inflation run above its 2% target to make up for its lost inflation, according to the Financial Times. Though the Fed's policies are to protect big Wall Street banks and keep liquidity ample in the financial system, its policies have overwhelmingly created deflation, supporting zombie companies and blowing financial bubbles. We are in the everything bubble, and it's not going to take much to pop it. What day? I don't know. Is it this year? 50-50. Is it the probably the first quarter of next year? Probably about 80 or 90% chance. But it could happen at any moment. One black swan event, price of silver spikes to $50. In a blink of an eye, JP Morgan and all the shorts. I don't know if JP Morgan's even short anymore. I doubt they are. But banks like Deutsche Bank and a couple of the Chinese banks and obviously Citibank are short. And the shorts are at 1 billion ounces. So every $1 silver goes up, they lose $1 billion. So a $30 jump in the price of silver? That's $30 billion in losses. You don't think it's important to hold that price down as long as you can until the system falls apart? That's what's going on right now. So they're going to change the rules to make up for lost inflation. There's no surprise here. It's a joke. They're gonna do it's what Ruta wrote in the sand. print money to infinity, and that's exactly what they're doing. For those of you on the private road, I'll show you guys this in the real world too. And I did post this on Patreon as well. I try to do this daily for Patreon and private road members. I'll talk about it once in a while, but we are at the total bailouts. Now, people get confused and they tack on. I heard a couple people, friends of mine, talking about the repo market and the POMOs, and they said that it's up in the trillions that they've bailed out the banks already. That is not true. Repos, the overnight repos are lent out the night before and pay back the next day. So you can't like tack on, you have 80 billion one day and 80 billion the next day. That's not 160 billion. That's just 80 billion. It's just carried over and over and over and over again because it's paid back and then gone again. That's the nature of this short-term repo game. The shortest term money you can get is the overnight money. Actually, they have intraday money now, which is insane, and I'll get into that in another video. But where we are right now, $325 billion is needed tonight, December 2nd. $325 billion is needed tonight to keep this Ponzi scheme going. If it was not there, the Ponzi scheme would end, and everybody would lose everything. So right now it's at $325 billion. By the end of the year, they got to paint the books. They got to hide as much of the fraud as possible, so they're going to be borrowing overnight money. I can't wait to see the number on December 31st. It's going to be ridiculous. Why? Because they gotta fudge their books. They're not in line with the regulators, all these zillion regulators. They're not in line, so you gotta use derivatives to paint the books, and they can't do it. They gotta get cash somehow, so they're gonna get the overnight repos. And then the next day, they're not gonna do anything for another 2-3 weeks, and then it starts again. So keep an eye on. Remember, right here, beginning of December with $325 billion overnight. I would not be surprised if they needed the 700 billion, maybe $1 trillion on the overnight of December 31st. Now, some of these are cumulative, and the cumulative ones are the POMOs. That's only at 252. So, but see, there's a difference here. Some of the term repos have been extended and they keep getting renewed, not the same price. So it's a little more complicated. But if you're going to give like the latest was it's right here from the Fed website, the New York Fed. It was a 28-day business day, 42-day repo. Got it just past December 31st, you notice, of $25 billion. Well, that's what was offered and what was submitted. The banks submitted their requests and it was 42. So massively oversubscribed again. But this doesn't mature until January 13th. And then they'll flip over another one. So what's the difference, really? The overnights are being flipped. Look at the overnight totals. 70. I said this a long time ago. When we were in the 50s, it was 50, 60, 70, 80. It's going to continue to grow. Around 11/19, 11/20, right before Thanksgiving, it got up to 100. And it jumped back down. And we're at 80 right now. 80 to, last one was 72. It'll jump to 89. Again, back and forth, back and forth. But if you look at the trend line, the linear graph is continually up. The exponential graph, we're waiting for that end of the year. It's going to jump exponentially. And then it's going to pull back a little, but not much. This is what they are doing as opposed to what they did in 2008. In 2008, they tried to fix it all at one time. Right now, they're trying, it's the problem so much bigger. They're trying to number one, not have Congress vote for any of this shit. Congress hasn't even spoken out. Our Congress critters need to all be taken out. I think the entire U.S. government needs to be removed and just go off our Constitution, which is very limited government. The federal government should be disbanded. That's how ridiculous they've become. But we all know that, right? We watch TV on occasion. Anyway, I will be talking about silver later today. Insane The silver story is the best story out there. Better than crypto story, better than gold story, better than any story. Why? Because it's 150 years of price suppression. This is what scares the banks the most, silver. The very moment it's freely traded, it's going to that cliff high $700. I think well over $1,000. I think gold and silver will trade 1-for-1 for a while. Why not? They're both monetary metals, right? According to the gold bugs and the silver bugs. Silver's been a monetary metal a hell of a lot longer than gold has. And there's massively more ounces of gold than they tell you about. And even if they didn't tell you about it, there's 5 billion ounces of gold in the world and there's 5 billion ounces of silver in the world. And yet silver is traded at 80-1 to gold. And silver is an absolute necessary metal for our high-tech future. I cannot stress enough that if you're a crypto person, you should have equal amounts of silver. If you're a gold person, you should swap all your gold for silver because you get double the bang for your buck. You get the monetary qualities of silver and you get the industrial side, which is huge. Over 60% of silver is used in industrial applications. It's like 98, 99% of all gold is used as money and just stored in vaults. So the supply of gold will continue to increase, whereas the supply of silver is continuing to decrease. How many times do I have to go over it? You guys know by now. If you've been here long enough. If you're crypto people, you got to have some silver along with your cryptos. I love cryptos. Absolutely. I'm going to do a big Litecoin discussion because there's some great news about Litecoin coming up. And it has to do with Bitcoin hodlers trying to get their hands on Litecoin as we move into the transition. And it is mega, huge news in my mind. And there are some announcements also that make Litecoin even more desirable as a form of exchange, as a means of exchange, that thing that Satoshi wanted. So yes, if you have Bitcoin, swap it for Litecoin. If you have gold, swap it for silver. And we have nothing in the cryptos. They're all just puddling around, 100% rigged and controlled, as you can tell by the price, by the volumes. Look at the volumes. It's just ridiculous. That's stupid. Even Ethereum. Look at Ethereum. $6.6 billion with a $16 billion market cap. All the Ethereum that's ever been mined in the world or ever been created. 2 times. Just over in 2 days, all of the Ethereum has traded. A little over 2 days. All of the Ethereum has traded that's ever been available on planet Earth. And you didn't sell your Ethereum, did you? It's insane. So, yeah, that's where we are, my friends. Oh, one more thing. Today is Cyber Monday. One day only, December 2nd. One day only, I am offering 2 Very tokens with every new subscription on the Road to Ruta private road and renewals. If you guys want to renew and tack another year on, I'll send you 2 Veritasium tokens along with the coolest silver coin ever. Yes, I do believe these will pay for the subscription. It's $2.99 for a year, and you get all the insights into the Road to Ruta, the Friday road trips, and all the juicy stuff, behind the scenes stuff. And you support roadtoruta.com. Just hit subscribe today at roadtoruta.com, and I will, today only, it ends at midnight Pacific time. So if you renew your subscription or you get a new private road subscription, I'm sending you 1 silver Ruta coin and 2 Veritasium tokens on a paper wallet. That's it. I'll talk to you guys in a bit.